Our speaker for this session, Joy Zhang, is a professional engineer that works as the environmental engineer at HDOT Harbors Engineering Branch Environmental Section. She is primarily responsible for developing and implementing comprehensive environmental compliance programs to satisfy the Harbor's requirements for compliance with state and federal laws and department policies. Please help me in welcoming Joy Zhang. Good morning, Joy.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and hello, my friends, and thank you for having me speak again this morning. As usual, through this session, we will review the major requirement of Harbor's construction and post-construction program and in terms of stormwater compliance, of course. And we'll be sharing a lot of information here, so I will try to do my best to finish this session on time. So besides all the regulatory requirement, we all know that clean water is of vital importance to our own use as well to the wildlife and fishing and tourism industries. And moreover, it is also our responsibility to protect our wildlife, including the many only found here in Hawaii. So through today's training session, we are hoping to strengthen our understanding of the construction best practices, environmental compliance, and also the long-term stormwater stewardship. And at today's session, and we'll start with brushing through the basic regulatory requirement and definitions, and then we'll go through Harbor's project processes from design to construction. And in particular, we'll discuss in depth about Harbor's construction site runoff control program and some more practical guidance. Last but may not be the least, we'll ride through Harbor's post-construction program requirement and share some real-world examples to help ensure our program helps both operational efficiency and the surrounding marine environment. Okay, all right, let's get started. Sorry, I forgot to click through all this bulletin bar. Okay, all right. So the regulatory requirement. And here is a list of our basic regulatory requirement at Harbors, which include the Clean Water Act and the related CFR by feds, and Hawaii Administrative Rules 11-55, 11-54, and related HRS, and then, of course, the 3 MPDS permit Harbors need to comply to as of today. The MPDS permit issued to Harbors requires the development on the implementation and enforcement of our own swamp, covering these 6 minimum control pillars listed here. And today's training would be focused on the construction site runoff control and the post-construction stormwater management for new development and redevelopment. And both Harbors manuals are available online at Harbor Stormwater website shared here. And shown below is just a snippet from our website listing the manuals, the checklist, the forms of BMP plans and template, and tailored just for Harbor's construction and post-construction programs. And here I'd like to emphasize the convenience of using Harbor's specific BMP plan template to make your BMP plan preparation more efficient. I think we all sit through the keynote speaker and it covers a lot of information related to the stormwater discharge and why it is important, and we have different permit and system in place to regulate all of this. So at Harbors, we're issued MS4 permit to manage the stormwater. And at Harbors, the negative stormwater impact from the construction site can occur when the stormwater runoff carries pollutants to nearby storm drains or waterways. And once the water has entered storm drain system, it flows and discharges directly to the adjoining harbor waters. Therefore, it is essential to implement proper BMP to manage and mitigate the contact to the rainwater before they enter the storm conveyance system. And one potential source of pollutants is from what we define as illicit discharge. And at Harbors, we described it as any non-stormwater discharge that pose a risk to the environment. An easy way to remember this is that only rain in the rain. And the picture on this slide will provide some examples of illicit discharge that should be eliminated from the regular construction operations. And some common pollutants from construction site can include the sediment from the soil erosion as excavation, vehicle fluids from equipment used on site, chemicals and aggregates stored on site, and of course, the waste from a portable toilet and concrete washout and some more litterings. And here I'd like to point out that the sediment is, as a matter of fact, is one of the most common pollutants found in our waterways. So it can be generated through surface soil erosion or just in situ soil excavation. And the two key definitions involved here are erosion and sedimentation. And erosion is a process by which the land surface is worn away by the action of water or wind, and sedimentation, the movement and the settling out of the suspended soil particles. And storm drain systems are usually designed to minimize the localized floodings by collecting and diverting the stormwater away from the roadways and the ground surface. And if not properly contained and managed, the sediment can easily fill up the storm drains and catch basins and clog up the pipelines and consequently cause the damage to local environment and public health. And excessive nutrient from the sediment can increase algae growth as well. It can also cause the water to become turbid and reducing or preventing the sunlight from penetrating through and reaching the corals and subsequently reducing the oxygen levels, which may impact the marine life. So if your project would disturb 1 acre or more or is part of a large common plan of development or sales, and it is very likely that your project would be subject to the NPDES program requirement by DOH Clean Water Branch. And HAR 11-55 Appendix C outlines the requirement for this construction site. And all regulated construction projects under Harbors jurisdictions are not only subject to DOH inspection, but also subject to Harbors BMP inspection program as well. All right, starting with this slide, we will review some project forming and execution process at the Harbors. So a typical project at the Harbors will generally follow the process shown on this slide, which include the project scoping, design, and then review, then move on to the construction, and then followed by long-term O&M. And we'll dive into this in the next few slides with a focus on the environmental and the stormwater compliance requirement. So during the project design phase, the scope of project will be finalized by the design engineers, and then the relevant environmental requirement will be assessed and identified. And when necessary, a pre-design meeting will be held, and the applicable Harbors form listed here and also should be completed by the design engineer team. For example, for non-exempt project that is less than 1 acre, the design engineers would need to complete a notification form for project less than 1 acre. And for a project subject to NPDES and IC permit requirement, in addition to the NPDES applications, the design team also need to complete the construction design review checklist, the post-construction design plan checklist, and the post-construction stormwater mitigation plan. And all this form can be found on the Harbors Stormwater Management website. So usually following the completion of a design phase, the project will then go out for a bid through the public solicitation. And upon contract award, the construction engineer would then work on updating and finalizing the sweep and then preparing a site-specific BMP plan, incorporating all their specific construction means and method as part of the submittal. And the updated sweep of the site-specific BMP plan shall be submitted to the Harbors for review, and then once accepted and approved, the contractor can start the installation of the BMP plan. And if a project disturbs 1 acre more and requires NPDES permit, then the sweep need to be prepared fulfilling the HAR 11-55 Appendix C requirement. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a template for both the sweep and the site-specific BMP plan, and make a good use of it. So what are the BMPs? And BMPs, basically, they're best management practice required to be implemented during the construction phase. For the goal of to impact the environment via managing and mitigating the potential pollutants at the source. It can be a structured device or a procedured practice, such as sweeping, such as a stabilized construction entrance and regular sweepings to remove the accumulated sediment, and the installation of a fabric filter or a drain cover seal as a storm drain inlet and berm around using biosocks. And of course, the training is a very important part of the BMP as well. And keep in mind that the storm drain protection usually are considered the last line of defense, and additional BMPs should be implemented to assist in preventing an illicit discharge from occurring. Harbors has adopted City County Honolulu's BMP manuals for constructions, and which provide information about the design details that should be followed. And any applicable BMPs from highways construction BMP manuals are acceptable as well. And BMP list on this slide are just some examples, and I'm not going to read through each one of them. And if you are working on roadway paving and the repair project, please ensure to implement the BMPs listed on this slide. And the next, something like you don't want to pave when the rain is forecasted, and you want to berm up all the storm drains and manholes, and you want to prevent the discharge of release agencies to the drain system. And of course, you want to minimize some other non-stormwater discharge. And of course, you don't want to overload your trucks, and you want to minimize airborne dust by spring waters, and the list can go on and on. Okay, all right. We'll be shifting our focus to harbor stormwater BMP inspections, as well as harbor's expectation during the active construction phase. So the Harbors Stormwater Management Program requires the inspection of a non-exempt construction site and the site regulated by NPDES NOIC permit. And these inspections are conducted to identify the potential or active illicit discharge and to ensure deficiencies are corrected to stay in compliance and to avoid being cited by regulatory agencies. And all harbors inspection, including initial, recurring, and final inspections to be conducted by qualified inspectors. And an initial inspection will be conducted after applicable site BMPs have been installed, and any deficiency or potential violation noted during this inspection must be corrected. And once the construction work has started, the harbors will conduct recurring inspections for the duration of the project. And this will occur once every 2 weeks during the wet season, which is now, and basically from October through March, and once every 2 months from April to September, we are considered the dry seasons. And all the deficiencies and potential violation noted may need to lead to enforcement actions if not corrected promptly. And usually a copy of the report will be furnished to the contractor within 5 calendar days. A final inspection will occur once the construction work is near completion and the site has been permanently stabilized. At the same time, this inspection will also serve to ensure that permanent BMPs are properly installed per specification. And deficiencies and potential violations, of course, similar to initial and recurring inspection, must be corrected prior to the completion of the project. Otherwise, the final payment can be withheld until all corrective actions are completed. Harbors, of course, does exempt certain types of project from this type of inspection. And this project usually brings a minimal impact to the environment, such as a minor land disturbance and postponed sign or just a simple fencing installation, utility repair works and parking lot and pavement repairs, and some other repair and maintenance activities. All right, in the following slides, and we will adventure through the general inspection guidance. The first one is you want to keep an updated BMP on site. And the BMP plans is a living document and will provide basic information about the project site and also helps identify which BMPs will be implemented on the job site. It should be promptly updated when necessary and must be kept on site. And you want to make sure, to obtain harbor project engineer's approval prior to updating your plan. Okay, stabilized construction entrance. So in general, this entrance should be consist of minimum 50 feet long by 30 feet wide and covered with 3 to 6 inches diameter aggregate over fabric with a minimum 12 inches in depth. And maintenance may need to be conducted regularly throughout the life of the project to remove the accumulated sediment and to keep the aggregate from settling. And for silt fence, it should be properly installed and maintained by setting the post on the downstream side of the fence every 6 to 8 feet. And the fabric should be stretched tight and the fence should be embedded in the ground at least 6 inches to secure the bottom of the fence. And the goal of the silt fence is to hold sediment-laden waters so as to keep the sediment behind the fence. The maintenance will be required to remove the cumulative sediment on the silt fence when it reaches 1/3 the height of the barrier. The picture on the top shows how deteriorated composed biosalts can actually become pollutants if not replaced or repaired promptly. So please consider use a more durable type of product for your job site. And here are the basic rules when using biosalts to burn your job site. And you want to place on the ground and make sure it is in close contact with the groundwater. And the end of the socks must be overlapped a minimum of 6 inches, and the end of the berm should be turned up the slope to aid in containing the sediment. And all the cumulative sediment should be removed, of course, when it reached 1/3 the height of the berm. And you want to replace the damaged sections promptly. Filter fabric can be used to contain the potential runoff pollutants and prevent them from discharging into storm drain system. And this is considered the last line of defense in terms of stormwater pollution, of course. And a common finding during inspection is that the inlet filter fabric displaced or in a very poor condition, and contractors should be conducting frequent inspection to ensure that the torn filter fabric is replaced and the cumulative sediment is removed promptly. And saw cutting of the concrete will generate dust and fine particles that can be easily carried away in stormwater runoff. And in the instant picture showed here, the construction workers were conducting saw cutting, but they are not using the proper vacuum system. And you can see the fine particles shooting off their vacuum system. And all concrete wash water must be properly contained. And this can be accomplished by designating a container on site and removing the debris once the water has evaporated. And additionally, when the rain is forecasted, and the cover will need to be added over the container to prevent the containment from overflowing. It is important to note that the containment may only be filled up to 75% capacity, and the temporary concrete washout facilities should be maintained to provide adequate holding capacity with a minimum freeboard of 4 inches for above-grade facilities and 12 inches for below-grade facilities. Spills and the vehicle leaks are a common source of pollutants on a concrete site as well. So vehicle and the equipment should be inspected and maintained regularly for leaks. And if a leak is observed, ensure that drip containment is properly utilized. And all construction workers should be trained on proper spill response. Or when it comes to spill response, you must, keep a spill kit on site and properly stocked. And the typical content include absorbent material, then PPEs, bags, container for disposal, and some non-sparkling tools for absorbent removal. And all spills should be immediately reported to a Harbors project engineer and other regulatory agencies if exceeded the reporting threshold. Stockpiles of aggregate material must be properly contained if they are to be stored for more than a day. And additionally, stockpiles should be positioned away from the waterways, such as the drainage swale, a storm drain, or some other surface water to prevent the material from being carried away. And improper disposal of paint waste and the painting equipment cleanout can introduce pollutants to the stormwater as well. So you want to provide a proper containment on site to contain the paint drips and chips. And also you want to, mix and store the paint within the secondary containment setup. And of course, you want to dispose paint waste properly. Headers materials must be stored properly on site as well. And in particular, a liquid containment of 55 gallons above should be equipped with a secondary containment. And they should be inspected regularly to ensure they're in good condition, properly labeled and marked. And it is highly recommended the headers material be stored in covered areas to minimize exposure to the storm water. And shown on this slide are some common findings related to housekeeping and waste management. Trash and debris throughout the site can be picked up by stormwater and carried to adjacent waters. Make it a regular practice at your job site to clean up the debris by the end of each working days. And when it comes to the solid waste management, some of the good practice include remove the debris from the site, place them in watertight dumpsters. You want to dispose the content regularly. And you also want to locate the dumpster at least 50 feet away from waterways, storm drains, and you want to segregate the storage of hazardous waste from other recyclable items. So throughout the construction phase, enforcement actions can be implemented where necessary to ensure corrective actions be completed timely. And the enforcement will reference the Harbors Swamp, a construction contract document, HRS and HAR. And once a regulatory agency such as DOH begin their enforcement, and they can be a specific penalty for each violation that could be compounded each day the violation occurs. And the potential for penalties show on these slides can be avoided if all parties working together and follows all the appropriate BMPs. So you should try to avoid being put on their naughty list. That's for sure. And at the harbors, handling and the management of contaminated media isn't a total stranger. And if your project involves the handling and the management of contaminated media such as soil, groundwater, and you will want to have a construction environmental hazard management plan, also called the CHMP, prepared in advance. And you want to appoint a qualified environmental professional to manage the soil, the groundwater, free product, stormwater, and the soil vapor. So I'm not going to step into the weeds on this, and we'll take another hour talk on this. And if the new contamination is discovered, the release must be reported to DOH HERE office. And of course, in the event of a spill or release that cause an imminent threat to the human health and environment, you want to, the first call always goes to 911. And in addition, if there is any finding of sensitive, threatened, or endangered species on site, corresponding regulatory agencies should be notified as well. And last but may not be the least, you want to keep all the relevant records and logs, such as the ones tracking the soils and leave the site and its final disposition. And at the conclusion of construction phase, a removal action report could be required by the DOH. All right, starting with this slide, we'll shift the focus to Harbor's post-construction program, which is a complementary component to construction site runoff control program. And we'll discuss some requirement while providing some guidance for project-specific planning, selection, and the designing of post-construction BMP to fulfill the NPDES permit and harbor swamp requirement. Okay, post-construction BMPs are of equal importance because it will continue to address potential stormwater pollution long after construction project has been completed. For example, if a construction project is for a parking lot, then a grassed swale to provide filtration for runoff from paved areas are considered post-construction BMP. And they can help reduce the runoff and will help reduce also assist with reduce the pollutants load, such as oil leak from a parked vehicles. Another important thing is that if you do include a post-construction BMP, it should be paired with operation and the maintenance manual to ensure that it continues to function effectively for the life of its intended use. For Harbors project, post-construction BMPs must be considered and evaluated for a project disturbing land of 1 acre or more. And there's exceptions, of course, which include the project involving maintenance, re-roofing, interior renovation, utility work, replacement of damaged pavement. And the design engineers would submit a post-construction BMP plan checklist and a post-construction stormwater mitigation plan to Harbor's environmental section for review. The post-construction stormwater mitigation plan, or the PSMP, begins by completing an existing drainage study of the area. The design team then identifies the source of potential stormwater pollutants that may be present during the regular site use. The design team would also include the drainage study, contaminants of potential concern, and the discussion of a selected post-construction BMP that will address these particular concerns. And all this information need to be gathered and compiled into the PSMP document. Post-construction BMPs are divided into 3 main categories, namely the low-impact development, which must be considered and evaluated first, then followed by the source control BMPs. And if neither are feasible, and treatment control BMPs must be evaluated. So the lid involves the retaining stormwater runoff on site and treating it as a source rather than a waste. And some examples included preserving the vegetated areas and collecting the runoff from a roofed area for watering. The goal of a source control is to prevent potential pollutants from contacting stormwater, such as covering a vehicle or equipment maintenance area. And treatment control attempts to remove the potential pollutants from the runoff, and this include BMPs such as a hydrodynamic separator. And designers could refer to City County's Honolulu guidance when developing a PSMP. And as a rule of thumb, volume-based BMPs must capture 1 or 1.5 inch of stormwater, and for the flow-based BMPs, it must capture, and treat 0.5 inch of the rainfalls per hour. In the next few slides, we will share some common BMPs you can spot throughout the state. The first one is conserve the natural areas, soil, and the vegetations. And this BMP shown here is only practical in areas where there's existing vegetations, and it should be marked off during the construction if practical. And bioswales, it meet the object of both retaining the stormwater on site and also providing the treatment. A bioswale consists of a channel where stormwater is directed and then infiltrated into the ground, and thereby reducing the quantity of the stormwater discharge And additionally, vegetation in these channels can be effective at removing pollutants that may be present in the discharge. And bioswales usually can be placed along the street parking lot where stormwater needs to be drained from and can also support vegetation growth. A planter box. A planter box are bioretention treatment control measures that can be paired with an impermeable structure connected to an under drain. And the show on this slide is a cross-section of a Grantex, which is basically a rain garden in a box. It is an innovative, inexpensive, and effective system that removes the zinc pollution in stormwater from galvanized metal roofs and the downspout on the terminal. This Grantex is built using a plastic tote, approximately 300 gallons, and inside a perforated underdrain system is installed at the bottom and followed by the layers of a drain rock. And then the screens are added to maintain the separation between the layers. And on top of the screen is a layer of the pea gravel, followed by another layer of screen, and sand is then added, followed by a bioretention soil mix. And the finishing touch include adding the plantings and river rock splash pad and the bank mulch. As stormwater passes through this kind, this kind of boxes, the pollutants are filtered and absorbed and biodegraded by the soils and plants. And also there's some filter devices. It's ideal for areas where the littering can be common, and it can also be fitted with different media to remove targeted pollutants. Okay, Harbors has instituted its a stormwater management program to protect our coastal water and to achieve compliance with environmental regulations. And it's a standard practice nowadays and should be followed by all parties involved. So as a part of the takeaway, please remember that all projects must be reviewed prior to the start. And the project that of 1 acres or more must consider and including a post-construction BMPs if feasible. And inspections can be a great tool to identify problematic areas to avoid hefty fines. And the main goal is to ensure that the pollutants are not contaminating the receiving water or the MS4s. And all parties should be familiar with harbor swamp requirement, applicable City County Honolulu Stormwater BMP guide, the manuals, and you want to keep up the good housekeeping. Ultimately, a successful program cannot be parted with each and everyone's support and the positive participation. All right, I think this will conclude the session for today. And empowered with the knowledge, we want to work together to safeguard our environment, and let's protect our harbor waters. And thank you again for attending this session, and thank you for being a steward to the clean water. For Harbors Stormwater website, and you can scan the QR code on this slide. And here's my contact information, and you'd like to reach out. And before I finish my slides, I also want to introduce my stormwater team to the audience here. And we have Mitchell Martello, environmental health specialist, and Jessica Liu just joined us recently, and also Jessica Aquino being very good, assist to our environmental program as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. So yeah, we have like a couple minutes if anyone has any questions.
Hi, I had a question about the corrective actions. When I think you mentioned like you talked about payment, or how is it built into your contracts? If you, for example, have a contractor who has a corrective action issue, and you tell them that it should be in the contract, they have to address it. But we've sometimes found that that doesn't always work. Are you contacting DOH to have enforcement? If, how do you guys build that into your projects?
Well, for project carry on at the harbors, we don't have to reach DOH at this level, and usually majority of the contractor, they are willing to work with us to resolve the issue. After all, it's a harbors project. If they don't correct it, we have the power to withhold the payment.
And I just was curious, how is that built into is that built into all of your contracts?
We should have like a standard, like generic
yeah.
language there. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, I would like to talk to you.
Sure. Yeah. Feel free to reach out.